Welcome to Chronicles by Candlelight. Subscribing helps the channel grow and lets you stay updated with every new video, so you never miss the content you enjoy. You are listening to Fracture. Episode 7, Myrmidon Hall. Face to face with one of the founders of Aetherium, and his power was incomprehensible. A single raise of the brow from him, and bodies hit the floor. Around me, dozens of students looked embarrassed they were knocked to the ground. Meanwhile, the ones who had stayed standing looked a cut above everyone, and they knew it. They all had this proud look on their faces, like they had just passed some invisible test the rest of us had failed. At the center of the stage, the old man waited calmly as if nothing unusual had happened. "Relax," he said. "That was merely a demonstration. The students who remain standing have already begun developing their spiritual energy." A wave of murmurs spread through the hall. "Those of you who were overwhelmed," he added without cruelty, "still have a long way to go." Like a craftsman pointing out flaws in unfinished steel, his words were matter of fact. "Spiritual energy," he said, "is the first weapon of any true fighter." He paused long enough for the words to sink in. "It is also the first shield." My brow furrowed slightly. This was the first time I had heard about this. "The pressure you just experienced," he continued calmly, "was less than a quarter of my power." The room went completely silent. My stomach tightened. If that had only been a fraction of what he could do, then what did the rest of it look like? "By the end of your first year here," Slade Baldwin said, "every one of you should be capable of withstanding that level of pressure." The statement hung in the air. "And if you cannot," he paused, "then you should quit. This institute does not exist to produce ordinary graduates. From this moment forward, you are no longer simply students. You are blades," he paused, "and blades are meant to grow sharper." The old man nodded once as if satisfied, then turned and slowly walked back toward the large chair waiting behind him on the stage. No applause followed, no cheering, just a heavy silence remained. After that, my attention drifted back across the hall toward the students who had remained standing earlier. One face in particular hugged the bulk of it. Oars Knox. Just how much stronger had he become, I wondered. Back in high school, he had already been dangerous. Now he was standing in a room full of the strongest new combat students in the country, and still acting like he owned the place. The gap between us suddenly felt enormous. Not just him. 100 or so students still stood, which meant they had already started mastering their spiritual energy, one that moments ago I didn't even know existed. On the stage, Dean Allthrough stepped forward again once Slade Baldwin had settled into his chair. "Thank you, Dr. Baldwin," he said respectfully. Then he turned back toward the hall. "Now that the demonstration is complete, we will conclude with several important Academy regulations." The screen behind him flickered back on. "First," he warned, "fighting unsupervised on the Institute grounds is strictly prohibited." A few students groaned. "Any combat between students must occur within designated arenas under supervision," he continued. "Second, students traveling beyond the campus perimeter are strongly advised to avoid the surrounding forests." Whispers about magic beasts lingered in the air long enough for me to get the gist of it. Apparently there were magical runes preventing beasts from entering into the city and surrounding towns, but not the forests. "The Academy will not be responsible for any incidents that occur beyond campus grounds," Dean Allthrough said, confirming the whispers. The silence stretched, then the Dean clasped his hands behind his back and stepped forward slightly. "With that said," he said with a lighter tone, "allow me to properly welcome you to your first day at the Aetherium Institute." A small ripple of applause moved through the hall. "You are now members of the Combat Department, a group that has produced some of the most accomplished fighters in the country." His gaze swept across the rows of students slowly. "And today, we thought it would be appropriate for you to see exactly what that path looks like." A few people leaned forward in their seats. Allthrough allowed himself the smallest smile. "As a small gift for your arrival, we intentionally scheduled your induction on a day when our second-year students are participating in ranked combat." The quiet hall erupted into excited chatter at once. No way, I thought. A chance to see second years in action? "Many of you are eager to understand what it takes to survive here," Dean Allthrough continued, raising his voice just enough to carry over the noise. "So we felt it was only fair that you witness it firsthand." Now the excitement was impossible to miss. "What ranks do you think are fighting?" some students asked. "The matches are being held in Myrmidon Hall," he said, gesturing toward the massive doors behind us. "If you leave now, you will arrive in time to observe the next bout." Then the entire hall exploded into motion. Conversations overlapped as students hurried toward the doors in large clusters. "No way I'm missing that," someone shouted as he clawed past me. I heard the top 100 are monsters, another said. I had to admit that I was intrigued as well. Second-year students? They had already survived 1 full year here. If I wanted to stay at this place, then those were the people I needed to understand. Outside, the mass of students slowly funneled onto one of the wide stone paths that cut through the campus. The path curved through several sections of campus before opening into a massive clearing where the structure finally came into view. Even from a distance, Myrmidon Hall was enormous. The building dominated the surrounding area like a fortress. Its stone exterior rose in massive curved walls that reminded me instantly of the ancient amphitheaters you saw in history documentaries. From the outside alone, it looked large enough to swallow the entire induction hall. As the crowd moved closer, the scale became even clearer. The entrances were tall, arched gateways spaced evenly along the outer ring, and each one funneled hundreds of students inside at once. When I stepped through the archway with the rest of the first years, the sight inside stopped me in my tracks. The arena looked like a modernized coliseum straight out of a fantasy game. The central fighting ground was a massive circular stage that sat slightly elevated above the surrounding floor. Its surface was smooth and minimalist, though faint runic patterns were etched into the stone, suggesting the entire platform was magically reinforced to survive whatever kind of destruction combat students could unleash. Around the stage rose steep tiers of seating that curved in perfect rings. Level after level of stone benches stretched upward toward the ceiling and formed a massive bowl capable of holding tens of thousands of spectators. Yet unlike an ancient ruin, everything was immaculately maintained. Bright light poured down from the high and smooth ceiling embedded with what looked like magical panels. Along the perimeter were several box-like platforms and gated entryways that resembled modern staging areas. They looked less like ancient architecture and more like control stations designed to manage large tournaments and house medical staff and officials. The first-year crowd had already begun filling the lower tiers of seating. Groups claimed rose quickly, and the quiet murmur of anticipation built steadily as everyone waited for the fights to begin. I looked for an empty spot when a voice called out across the seats. "Reagan." I turned to find Jasper Bones standing a few rows up. He gestured toward the empty space beside his group. "You can sit with us," he said. I slid into the open seat Jasper had pointed out, which unfortunately happened to be directly beside the blonde girl. She glanced sideways at me immediately, making it painfully clear she hadn't forgiven me for telling her off outside the dorms earlier. Jasper, completely oblivious to the tension, leaned in my direction. "All right," he said casually, nodding toward each of them in turn. "Since Reagan here just joined the group, I should probably do the introductions." He pointed toward the boy with the handheld console. "That's Luca Finn." Luca didn't bother looking up. He just nodded. Then Jasper gestured towards the blonde beside me. "Mia Edna." Mia gave the smallest nod possible without actually looking at me. Finally, he motioned to the other girl sitting just beyond Luca. "And that's Zuri Rose." Zuri smiled politely and waved. Then Jasper turned his thumb toward me. "Everyone, this is Reagan Snow." He paused for a second. "Though honestly, we already know him." Luca finally glanced up from his game. "Oh yeah," he said flatly. "You're the weak guy from earlier." Jasper immediately elbowed him. "That's rude," he warned. "But it's true." Luca blinked at him innocently. I couldn't help letting out a small breath. "I appreciate the help back there, though," I said, looking toward Luca, with oars. "I just hate bullies," Luca shrugged, already looking back down at his game. His tone was so casual it sounded like he'd stopped someone from cutting in line at a grocery store instead of stepping in front of a guy who could crush people with spiritual pressure. Jasper chuckled and leaned back in his seat. "Anyway," he said, clearly redirecting the conversation, "what ranks do you guys think we're about to see?" Zuri tapped her chin thoughtfully while scanning the massive arena floor. "I hope some decent people," she said. "I just hope it's fun," Luca said. I shifted slightly in my seat, glanced sideways and met Mia's eyes. "Hey," I said, "I want to apologize for earlier, but I deserve an apology as well." Almost immediately she looked away again toward the arena, brushing a strand of blonde hair behind her ear like I wasn't talking to her. Before I could say anything else, a wave of murmurs began. The large entrance gates near the lower tier had opened again. A small procession of figures entered the hall. Dean Allthrough walked at the front, followed closely by several staff members and academy officials. "Does the dean watch every fight?" I wondered aloud. Jasper followed my gaze toward the group making their way to the official viewing box. "Probably not," he said. "But if they're all here..." A grin slowly spread across his face. "Then this must be a big fight." Maybe top 50. Zuri nodded thoughtfully. Nah, Jasper shook his head immediately. Look who showed up. He gestured subtly toward the viewing box again, where Slade Baldwin had just taken a seat beside the other officials. Feels bigger than that. My attention shifted back toward the arena floor just as a sharp voice echoed through the hall. A presenter, an old skinny member of staff, had stepped onto a small platform near the edge of the stage. The sound system carried his voice across the massive arena. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. The murmuring crowd quieted almost instantly. Preparing to enter the arena, he paused dramatically. Second year rank number 8, Elise Hancock. A ripple of excitement ran through the audience. And, he said, second year, rank number 12, Brian Topman. The arena erupted into cheers. Jasper slapped his knee with a wide grin. Now we're talking, he said excitedly. The top 20, I muttered. A low rumble of anticipation rolled through the arena as the fighters appeared. The first to step onto the arena floor was the girl ranked 8th. Her presence immediately drew attention. She wore a combat training suit that clung to her frame like a second skin, with high compression fabric. A structured collar framed her neck while the sleeves hugged her arms tightly, leaving no loose material that could slow movement in a fight. The color palette was blue and charcoal black. Angular patterns ran across the suit in geometric lines that emphasized the movement of muscle beneath it, almost as if the uniform itself had been designed to highlight the body mechanics of combat. The arena lights reflected faintly across the material as she walked towards the center of the stage with calm steps. A moment later, her opponent emerged from the opposite gate. The guy wore the exact same training uniform, though his shoulders were broader, and on him the sharp lines of the suit emphasized a heavier, more explosive build. The presenter's voice echoed again through the massive space. Combatants, take your positions. Both fighters stepped onto the circular platform and stopped several paces apart. The presenter raised a hand. The rules are simple. His voice carried clearly across the arena. This match will continue until one fighter is unable to or voluntarily surrenders. He gestured between the two competitors. Knockdowns will be counted to 10. Combat abilities and powers are permitted. That earned a louder reaction from the crowd. There will be a single round. The presenter paused briefly before finishing. Only weapons previously registered and cleared by officials may be used. Introducing new weapons during the match is strictly prohibited. He lowered his hands slowly. For the rankings of the second-year class, his voice rose with dramatic emphasis. Let the ascension commence. The arena erupted into cheers. Rank 12, Brian Topman, didn't hesitate for even a second. The moment the signal was given, he exploded forward. His feet slammed against the reinforced arena floor as he launched into a full charge, with his body leaning low as he accelerated toward his opponent. The air around his legs pulsed violently as he moved. Small shockwaves burst outward with every step, rippled across the arena floor, and sent faint cracks of compressed air snapping through the space around him. Shockwave's ability interesting, Jasper muttered beside me. Brian used them like thrusters. Each burst of compressed force amplified his momentum, pushing his body forward faster and harder until he was practically flying across the arena. He closed the distance in seconds. Then he swung. His fist cut through the air with terrifying force, the shockwave around his arm compressing into a violent impact point aimed straight at his opponent's head. But Elise Hancock didn't move back. She stepped forward instead. The moment his strike came down, a whip of glowing plasma snapped into existence. The whip crackled with purple energy as it lashed forward, wrapping around her forearm like a living ribbon of light. Then she raised her arm and met the punch head-on. The impact exploded across the arena, and the collision rang out like metal striking metal. Things were getting interesting. Subscribe for new episodes. See you next time.